Hello, hello. Today it's two of us again. Myself, Andrey Devyatkin, and Guilherme Ferreira, a principal consultant at FivexL. I'm a co-founder at FivexL. And today we have a second part of a series Building MVP on AWS. Don't worry if you haven't seen the first one. It's available on our YouTube channel. You will see a link somewhere on the screen right now if you want to catch up. But don't be worried too much about that because Guilherme will give a little bit of MVP introduction, what it is, and so on. But we want to watch that video because it covers the basics of AWS account configuration. And now we assume that you got AWS account configured, you're ready to go, and you need to make a choice for your compute. What will host your service? And this is exactly what Guilherme is going to tell us. So the stage is yours, please.
Thank you, Andrey. Thanks for having me. As Andrey mentioned, I'll be introducing you to the MVP concept before we jump into the AWS world, because it's very important, and also it's a hot topic, right? When it comes to MVP, it's debatable, right? What you consider MVP might not be what I consider MVP. So I will set the stage first, right? At least from my point of view, and then we move forward and discuss what AWS has to offer for us when it comes to creating an MVP on AWS. Andre, can you put the slides up, please? Yes, thank you very much.
Here you go.
Thank you. First of all, what is an MVP, right? If you search on Google or if you check your favorite LLM, you're going to get the definition of minimal viable product. So basically, you're trying to find the basic product version with the core features only, right? You want to deliver something. Of course, the software is made up of a lot of features, but maybe 5 or 10 of them are the core part of your solution. And the MVP will focus on this, right? So you're going to be delivering the first features, and later you're going to be like enriching the features with more functionalities and so on. So this is the MVP. From my point of view, you're still testing the market demands, right? You had an idea, or maybe somebody came with an idea that you are implementing, but you are still testing. You're not quite sure if that idea will work, or if you're gonna be able to attract traffic or customers. So the main idea on MVP is you are creating the basic functionality, testing the market, trying to attract early adopters, which means first customers or people that are excited about your idea. And you're mainly focused on speed and feedback. What does it mean? I want to deploy something, I want to publish something, and I want to get the feedback as soon as possible because I'm still unsure about my idea, right? So who is gonna validate my idea? Customers, right? I can't validate my idea. I can think, oh, I'm super smart. This startup will be unicorn in the future. But this is just your opinion, right? You should validate your opinion, your thoughts against real customers. And MVP is mainly focused on speed, right? The soon you get the feedback, the better will be the development of your MVP, and you get the feedback, right? Of course, I will not uh, go into details here, right? Because you can use a lot of strategies to get feedbacks and talk to customers. This is not the topic of this talk, but you know what I'm talking about, the MVP, right? And here's the key concepts of MVP from my standpoint. So we're setting the stage so you can understand the things I'll be explaining here. First of all, you don't have what we call the product market fit yet, right? So you had an idea, you want to deliver something, but you're still unsure what type of customers you will be attracting. Are they enterprises? Are they small business, medium business? Are they from the healthcare industry? Are they from any other industry in the world? You're not quite sure. So you're trying to find where your product will land, right? The second topic is ability to pivot quickly. Basically, what I just said. If you're develop something and then you get like a feedback, yeah, but this is not what I was expecting. A customer is telling you that the product is not good enough. you need to change it quickly. So the technology that you are using to build your MVP is important because you need to be able to change things quickly as well. If you're creating like a building with a lot of floors, is going to be very hard for you to change the first floor after building the second and third floor and so on. So you need to be able to pivot quickly. A third aspect here is very important for startups, right? You have to keep your costs under control. It's nice to have like an MVP that is shiny and works pretty well, but if it costs a lot of dollars or euros, it will not help you, right, to deliver your product and will not be viable, right? Remember, viable product. Number four, the technical complexity. I put here is debatable because I'm a coder. I know how to code, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're using some tools to help you to write the code, or you hired someone to help you to write the code. So the technical complexity will vary. For me, it's pretty simple to deploy an application on AWS, but for you, it might not. So I'm taking here into account different level of complexities. It's going to be clear in the next slides. And the fifth topic is you have no customers, no traffic. So it's very hard for you to predict the amount of customers you have in a single at the same time on your application, or the traffic you're going to be receiving. Is it coming from Europe, from South America, from North America? It's very hard for you to define. So these five things here is not an exhaustive list, but keep in mind for the rest of my presentation, please. And why, right? You have to create MVPs on AWS, of course, because AWS is the best cloud of the world. I'm not biased, but you should be using pay-per-service cloud provider, and AWS is the cloud provider that we use at FivexL. But jokes apart, the first part is the cost efficiency, because some services on AWS provides you the ability to pay for what you use, right? Because there are few services. If you create a source, if you create, for example, a cluster, you'll be paying for it, right? It doesn't matter if you have traffic or customers, or if anybody is using your application, you'll be paying, right? It doesn't matter. Only the existence of the resource will be enough for you to start paying. And for MVP, for a startup, that usually the money is not on the table. It's a sensitive aspect for you to take into account. Scalability. This is another debatable topic, but you still don't know about your traffic. You don't know how many customers you're going to have. It's important to think about scalability, but don't take it too seriously when you're building your MVP. It's important to use some service that will be able to scale down the line, of course. I don't know if you get like 10 customers out of something, right? For you're lucky, and then you get a lot of customers at the same time, you're going to be able to scale it, but don't take it too seriously because you can change, right? You can pivot quickly in the future. And the third topic here, why you should be using AWS for MVPs, flexibility, right? You can start using, for example, serverless technologies. You can move to containers or even VPS. You can use VPS on AWS. So the AWS ecosystem will provide you the flexibility to change the technology as well. Remember, pivot quickly. Flexibility is really important for startups and for MVPs. So let's cover the first service that I would like to mention here, right? The first one is the serverless technology. Of course, I will not go into details here about serverless, but basically, serverless technologies will provide you the ability to run code without managing servers. So if you are a very experienced infrastructure guy, or if you have no knowledge about infrastructure, you're going to be able to run your code without thinking about provisioning images, operational systems, or patching things. You just work on the core part of your MVP, for example, your code, your website, and then you deploy to AWS. AWS will manage things for you on your behalf, will put it online, will scale for you without you thinking about anything behind the scenes. That's why it's called serverless. Mr. Andrey.
What are the drawbacks of this one? Why you would need to consider anything else? Why not just go with serverless?
Yeah, that's a very good question because, in my point of view, When it comes to serverless, you might have some technical knowledge, right? Deploying Lambdas and API gateway in front of it. Nowadays, you can deploy Lambdas without API gateway, but the combination of both will provide you maybe the most powerful serverless solution in AWS. Requires you to have some technical knowledge, right? You need to like create some code, you need to use something to deploy your Lambdas, to deploy your API gateway. There are a few options in the market. For example, the serverless framework, the AWS CLI, AWS SAM, and CDK, some other options. So you might consider this when starting your MVP. And the second thing is serverless is not for everything, right? Depending on your MVP or what your business is doing, serverless will come with some restrictions. You might, when you research about serverless, you're gonna find like, okay, it's you can scale it infinitely. It doesn't have any limit. Will scale to millions and millions of requests, but you need to be careful because there are a few limitations. For example, a Lambda function can only run for 15 minutes. If your job is doing something like that is CPU intensive, serverless might not be the best option for you. So you need to see this with a grain of salt, right? And look for things that are specific to your business. This is the I think would be the main things to consider when it comes to serverless.
So typical infrastructure would look like you would have your website on S3 behind CloudFront, and then all your backend services will be represented by Lambdas hiding by API gateway. So your front end would call the API gateway, and then Lambda would do something, return
Exactly.
the answer. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you don't pay when you have no traffic, right? If you want to save money as much as possible, serverless is the best option for you, but it comes with a price to pay, right? As I said.
One important thing that I want to mention here is we are not mentioning databases at this moment. And that is because there will be one more part of this multi-part series where we will specifically talk about databases. Right now, we're focusing on compute. So, shall we move on?
Yeah, very good one. Databases is maybe the number one bottleneck of our applications, but we're going to be covering some other videos. Okay, great. I already mentioned about autoscaling and pay-per-use model. So if you look at the documentation, AWS will say that Lambdas can scale to millions of requests. That's true, right? They're not lying to you, but you need to look at this with some reservations, right? Because there are limits, and serverless is not for everybody. But the good part here is you pay only for things that are being executed. So if you don't have traffic, you don't pay for it. As Andrey mentioned, you can deploy your front end to an S3 bucket and put a CloudFront in front of it. It's very cheap, right? You're not running any servers, so it's fully serverless. And here I recommend you to use serverless for APIs, as Andrey mentioned, and for microservices. Microservices is a bit more advanced topic, but usually serverless will serve you at the first weeks or maybe months of your application. The good thing is, as I mentioned before, if you start with Lambda, serverless, or some other services like API Gateway, Dynamo, and RDS, as Andrey mentioned about databases, you can move to some other services. It's not straightforward, but you're going to be able to move to some other services. For example, you can create containers and move to ECS. So get started with serverless if your requirements are among these three things that I just mentioned. Great. Let's move to the next service, AWS LightSail. This is a very popular AWS service. LightSail is basically what we call VPS. VPS is a virtual private server with a very simplified setup. So you're basically creating a virtual server inside of AWS. Sometimes it sounds confusing because people say that AWS is already a cloud provider and you're creating a VPS inside of a cloud provider that is already a virtualized environment. I don't know if I'm making it too complex, but basically you're creating something on top of the AWS infrastructure. You're not creating the EC2 instance yourself. You're not creating the ECS cluster yourself. You're using the knowledge of AWS and all the services and the instrumentation of AWS to create VPS. virtual private server. It's straightforward because AWS offers you sort of recipes, so gives you ready to use or out of the shelf services for you to deploy stuff. For example, you can deploy a you can deploy a blog system, you can deploy control panel, you can deploy some applications that come out of the box ready for you to use. You don't need to configure anything. You just enter the parameters and the AWS will deploy on your behalf. This is very good if you want to deploy, for example, WordPress, right? You're creating a blog, or people use WordPress for landing pages as well, right? So you can create a landing page of your MVP using LightSail without any WordPress knowledge, right? You just go click, click, click. At the end of the line, you're going to have like something deployed to your infrastructure, and AWS is going to manage it for you on your behalf. And the good part of it is the predictable pricing. Again, this is not serverless, so you pay when the resource is running, regardless if you have traffic or not. But the price is predictable. AWS is going to give you a price per month, and then you're going to be able to plan it, right? To plan it accordingly. With serverless, you don't pay when you don't have traffic, and here you pay regardless if you have traffic. Mr. Andrey.
Right. I would say we have quite many customers who went beyond MVP stage. They actually achieve market fit, so they have a transaction going through, they have people paying for their services. So they actually found the real problem that they're solving. And many of them actually started on AWS from using LightSail because, as Guilherme mentioned, it gives you a very, very simplified way of starting the LightSail server. If you go to EC2 console, there are tons of bells and whistles you can configure, and you might not know what they are. So you might do a wrong choices. LightSail is very, very simplified. And you're just getting a server, and they would just, copy their JavaScript code on that server and run it from there. So they don't use CloudFront, they don't use S3. Everything is running on the same server. It's very, very simple setup, and it could be a good fit for sophisticated developers because with Lambdas, you need to think a little bit at least about your architecture and split it in pieces, upload different Lambdas, and so on and so on. Here, you just take your monolithic spaghetti code, dump it to the server using SCP, and run it. So that it's quite simple, but it will get you going in a moment. So I'm not saying that you should be choosing LightSail exactly, like that's the best option, but it's an option for you to consider. And I think Guilherme wanted to record a demo later on, not at this video, but a separate video showing how LightSail setup would look like.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Andrey. Yeah, that's correct. One thing that usually people think it's right and wrong inside of AWS, right? I already heard this before. Oh, using LightSail is wrong. No, it's not wrong. It just needs to be aligned with your requirements, right? If you want to deploy something quickly and you want to pivot quickly, use LightSail, right? Don't invest your time on things that doesn't matter for your business at this point in time. I mean, in the future, you can invest time, like Andrey said about Lambdas, that takes more time, or some other container service that will take you more time from a technical perspective. But at this moment, you need to attract customers, right? And to find your product market fit.
A question.
Yes.
Some people might see things like a beanstalk on the internet, people recommending the beanstalk. So what would be the difference between beanstalk and LightSail?
Yeah, beanstalk will be, yeah, go ahead.
No. Go.
AWS has been creating this is the thing about AWS. I don't know if you agree with me, Andrey. There are a few services that overlap with each other, right? When it comes to something, when you look at the AWS ecosystem, you're going to find a lot of services that are doing the same thing in certain areas, right? And Elastic Beanstalk will also offer you something similar to the next service that I'll be mentioning, the App Runner, right? With Elastic Beanstalk, you don't have like the out-of-the-shelf containers to run like LightSail, but it's going to offer you the ability to deploy stuff more easily and you can also deploy containers, for example. You can deploy EC2 instances, and it will come with not only the compute part, but Elastic Beanstalk will also provide you the database, also the load balancer, and everything around it. But you're going to find the same thing on some other services, right? Elastic Beanstalk is a very popular service. I recorded a video a few years ago, and I still get people watching it because it's used in a lot of places.
Right. I feel that LightSail actually might be an upcoming replacement of the Beanstalk, since it also lets you run containers. It also provides you load balancers. You can just one-click deploy load balancer, and it also provides you ability to create databases from simplified UI. So maybe, but like if you hear the Beanstalk, it's an older service. It existed for a very long time. And I would say UI is not as sleek as LightSail. LightSail feels much more fresher if you go to the UI, and it actually hides much more complexities comparing to the Beanstalk. Beanstalk exposes underlying services to you. With LightSail, it's all hidden from you. It's run by Amazon for you.
Yeah, fully agree.
Shall
And
we
Elastic
continue?
Beanstalk, you can see the cloud formation things. There's a CLI. It's a bit more complex. But as we speak, AWS is retiring a lot of services. And let's see if AWS is going to retire Beanstalk in the future. I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows? Okay, let's move on. App Runner. App Runner, as Andrey was mentioning, is another service that allows you to deploy stuff on AWS without having to provision things yourself, right? But here the focus is on containers, so you can deploy containers or web applications and also APIs, of course, to the AWS infrastructure without having to create things from scratch, right? In the I would say, I don't know if Andrey agrees with me, but in a line of complexity, maybe serverless would bring more technical complexity for you. LightSail is easier than App Runner because it requires you more stuff, right? You have to deploy the image to the ECR service, and then from there you will be deploying. You have to configure a few things, but also App Runner offers you some buttons and some options, some parameters that you can play with, and then AWS is going to deploy this stuff on your behalf. It's fully managed and with auto-scaling as well. So in the future, if your traffic grows, you can your infrastructure will be ready to serve your traffic. From a technical perspective, you can source your things from GitHub, for example, or container images, as I said. So if you're a developer, you're building your code in GitHub, you can plug the two services and then build your images based on your source code and then deploy to App Runner. Super straightforward.
I would say the closest comparison would be a Heroku. You push to build. You have your GitHub repository. You have a Docker file in it. You push it. App Runner will pick up the commit. It will build your Docker file, produce the image, load this image to the infrastructure. It will load balance. So if you're getting the traffic spike, it will automatically create more containers for you. If there is no traffic, it will scale it to 0. It will keep it in a pre-warm state, so you're still paying a little bit of money for that. So it can, because they keep it in memory, but you're not paying for CPU, for instance. You're paying only for memory when it's scaled down to 0. You're getting SSL out of the box. You can connect it to VPC. You can connect it to database. App Runner is the newest service of all of those. That was released only a couple of years ago. And that's why it actually might be missing some features. So, for instance, if you need to run more than one process, then it might be challenging. Like if you want to have some sidecars, then maybe LightSail VPS might be better because you can manage multiple processes there. Here, you're basically running one container, and I haven't seen that they added possibility to write like sidecars if you would have an ECS, EKS, and others. So it's very simple, but it's powerful because you don't manage any infrastructure. You don't create any infrastructure whatsoever. You just configure that App Runner service, and then you just push, and it's automatically deployed. So you don't need to invest your time in CI/CD. With other services mentioned today, you still need to manage deployment process somehow. So maybe you RCP your code to the server, These lambdas, maybe you run your AWS CLI, making zip files and so on and so on. Here, you just push and it goes. So that's very powerful, I think.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Great. Let's move forward. Here, there's a table comparing the services, everything that I mentioned, right? Of course, again, this is my point of view, and it's not an exhaustive list, but basically, I have Lambda use case for API microservices, event-driven architectures, right? Benefits: you only pay for things that are being used, right? So you have traffic, you pay for it. If you don't have traffic, you don't pay, and it's auto scaling. So you don't need to think about, okay, what if I get like 1 million requests at the same time? AWS is gonna um, scale things on your behalf. LightSail use case for web apps or simple databases. It's very easy to set up, and there's a predictable pricing. As Andrey mentioned, you're going to be recording a video where you're going to be deploying something on LightSail. You're going to see that it's super straightforward and easy for you if you're looking for something easy to deploy and find your product market fit. App Runner, containers, right? APIs, as Andrey just mentioned, is fully managed, outscaling, but doesn't come with the full features that, for example, ECS would provide you with sidecars and some other advanced features. But my point of view, this is a very good first step towards container-based applications. Moving forward, again, best practice based on not only the theoretical knowledge, but also based on my experience. I've been building MVPs for several years and also talking to customers on AWS and also at FivexL. First of all, start small, focus on feedback. We mentioned a couple of things, as Andrey mentioned. Some of the services that we mentioned requires you to have CI/CD knowledge. So if you don't have it, just skip it, because you must start small and focus on feedback. Talk to your customers and get feedback from them, regardless what technology you're using inside of AWS. Costs, right? It's very important for you to keep costs under control. In the previous video, Andrey mentioned about budgets and costs. Cost explorer, I think we didn't cover, right? But budgets, you must enable it, right? Did we mention cost explorer?
There was cost anomaly detection and budgets. I mentioned those two things.
Very good one. So go back and watch our previous video, because Andrey showed how to enable, for example, some alerts, right? So keep the cost under control, and of course align it with your expectations in terms of viability of your business. And of course, use the AWS free tier in the first 12 months. Some services will be for free. Some of them are always free, depending on your traffic, depending on how many hours of usage you have per service. So always check the documentation, because the free tier policy is based on services, right? There's no single policy for the entire AWS ecosystem, so check it. Or if you have any questions, please let us know, that we can help you seeing if you're going to be reaching the limit. But I can tell you that you're going to be paying very little per month if you pay attention to the free tier service limits. All right, let's go to the conclusion. Serverless, um, I would put in more complex, technically speaking, because it requires you to code, to create like the API gateway, to create S3 buckets for your front end. You need to work on some CI/CD, or if you don't want to use CI/CD, you can use the CLI. But at some point, you need to deploy your stuff to AWS, so it requires you a little bit more knowledge from a technical perspective. LightSail, straightforward. Through the console, you can deploy a lot of different applications, right? For example, you can deploy Joomla, Magento, Drupal, GitLab, some e-commerce solutions as well. So we have a lot of options there. Super straightforward, no technical knowledge. App Runner for containers. And of course, the main message here is build fast, scale as needed, and iterate based on feedback. So you need to be able to scale, of course, but don't pay too much attention to this at the beginning of your journey, because this is not needed. You don't have customers, and all services here will provide you enough capacity to find your product market fit. Mr. Andrey, this was my talk for today.
Right. I think we will wrap it up here. There will be a follow-up videos. As we mentioned, there will be a database chapter. There will be demo chapter to keep this video shorter. I think I do the App Runner demo as well. So we will have a LightSail coming up. We will have App Runner demos. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel. And if there are more topics that you would like us to cover, you know where to find us. Let us know.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I just need to share one thing with you that is very important. Of course, I covered 3 services, but AWS has a white paper, right? Can you see my screen now? Probably yes, right?
Yeah.
I'll be sharing this link with you, but here you can see a white paper from AWS choosing your compute service, and this is from June 2024, and you see the list of services, right? EC2, spot instance, batch, ECS, all services. So choosing a compute service on AWS is not that straightforward, right? That's why we covered 3 just to help you to get started. But as soon as you move your MVP to a different stage, maybe you become like not an MVP anymore, you become like a startup or even a scale up, please reach us out and talk to us, because we have a lot of experience helping companies moving from one stage to the other.
Look, Beanstalk is not on the list. I guess it's a message. It's not on the list.
Yes.
It's a message.
Yes, your crystal ball is working very well, man. You're predicting the future. All right. I like it.
I don't know, but I have a feeling where it's going. Take it with a grain of salt.
Yes, great. Thank you very much, Andrey. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right. Thank you for your time, Guilherme, and until next time. Bye-bye.
Ciao.